Hello, everyone. I'm Bridget Reed. I'm a writer at New York Magazine, and this is What is Even Happening, where New York's writers and editors ask experts to help us untangle questions in the news. This week, we're looking at what a 6-3 conservative Supreme Court would mean for reproductive rights, and I'm here with Robin Marty, author of Handbook for Post-Roe America and The End of Roe v. Wade. Robin, when we scheduled a time to talk about this, it had not become clear that Donald Trump's pick for SCOTUS to replace Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Amy Coney Barrett, that her nomination ceremony had been a super spreader event or a possible super spreader event for coronavirus. And 7 people, including 2 members of the judiciary who would be ostensibly confirming her, are now ill. So we don't, there could be some crazy stuff happening with the votes in the next few weeks, but how is Roe in danger even if Amy Coney Barrett's nomination and confirmation are delayed? Or even if Biden appoints a progressive to the Supreme Court if he wins?
Right. So not to be really doomsday-y, but honestly, we were already on a path once Brett Kavanaugh was signed in and nominated and appointed in the Supreme Court that Roe was going to be overturned. We knew that that was probably going to happen, and there probably wasn't much that we could do to stop it. What we need to understand now is that if Amy Coney Barrett is put into the courts, that means that there's going to be a 6-3 or at best 5-4 decision to overturn Roe. So what we are talking about is the idea that John Roberts is no longer any sort of potential swing vote that can be brought over in order to try and stop this. And once upon a time, we never even would have given a thought to John Roberts as somehow being the person who could keep Roe v. Wade from being overturned. So we're already on this path to destruction. We know that there are 4 votes for sure that will definitely overturn Roe. We believe that Coney Barrett would be the 5th. And then Roberts always was supposed to be for that side anyway. So this doesn't change anything. One of the things that we do need to realize, though, is that if she is not seated and we go into the election with there still being 8 people on the Supreme Court, that isn't really going to change a lot either. We do have a few cases that are coming up in the pipe. In fact, the Supreme Court is expected to be looking at the expansion on medication abortion that has happened in some states, which allows people to have medication abortion mailed to them rather than people needing to go into the clinic in every state in order to get access to it. That is one case that I would expect to see be that the Supreme Court will decide that no, you cannot continue to mail it in every state. And that is one thing that if you look at that, it will be that it could be an opportunity to overturn Roe, but I do not see a space where the court is going to want to do anything without a full court. When John Roberts does overturn Roe, and I believe that he is going to be a vote to overturn it, he's going to want to do it with a full court, because otherwise it can be looked at as something that might be able to then be re-examined down the road, and he doesn't want that for his legacy.
Right. So we're already in a place where Roberts has kept Roe v. Wade intact on, you might call it a technicality, or ruled that a court case needs to be brought to him that is technically sound enough to overturn Roe. So once that happens, well, let's actually go first. When is the soonest that can happen with the court schedule being set the way it is?
So had there been a full makeup of 9 people on the Supreme Court, I think that that could have actually happened much quicker. There is no reason why the FDA case that's coming up right now couldn't be something that they could use to overturn Roe if they really wanted to. But like I said, because it is not a full court, I don't expect them to do anything right now. So the soonest that any Roe versus Wade case would be possible that would be overturned would need to be a new case that is introduced after there is a full 9-person court. The earliest that that can happen then would probably be this March. And then that would mean hearing in March and then likely in end of June, maybe July, because we did see that the Supreme Court cases kind of spread out a little bit when they had to take their time over COVID because they couldn't do it in person. But so we'd be looking at sometime next summer.
Wow. Okay. So let's say this nightmare scenario for a lot of reproductive rights activists happens. Roe is overturned. What happens in states with trigger laws?
Right. So at this point, there are, I believe, according to Guttmacher, officially 13 states that have trigger laws. And a trigger law is a law that says that if the federal courts overturn Roe v. Wade and each state is allowed to make their own decision about whether abortion should be legal or not, then that state will immediately make abortion illegal. There are two types of trigger laws. One of them will make it illegal the moment that Roe v. Wade is overturned. The other one will make it illegal as soon as the legislature can meet in order to then say that we are enacting a statewide ban. So of those 13 states, all of those would, by the end of their next legislative session, overturn any sort of legal abortion in the state. But if you start to look at the map and look at what states have said that they have a constitutional state protection for Roe v. Wade, or I'm sorry, for keeping abortion legal in the state, there are a number of states that have now introduced more conservative legislatures, and those conservative legislatures and conservative state Supreme Courts are in the process of looking at cases that could strip the state right to an abortion away. So one of the most concerning for us is the fact that the state of Florida says officially that according to their state constitution, there is a right to an abortion. However, because of the way Florida has trended so far to the right over basically since 2010, there is now a far right state Supreme Court there, and they believe that they are going to be stripping the state constitutional right away. What that means is that Florida was at this point going to be one of the only states in the entirety of the Southeast that was going to have access to legal abortion, and that could be on the rocks.
Are there states that are preparing in the opposite way?
There are, and we've had a lot of states that have done work over the last, basically ever since Kavanaugh was announced that he would be joining the Supreme Court. Massachusetts has done work to try and protect and codify Roe. There is a push actually right now in New Jersey that just started about a week ago to try and get a state protection for the right to an abortion there. We've seen Virginia do the same. We've seen New York do the same. So there are states that are doing that. Colorado is currently they do not have a state right to an abortion at this moment. They're actually fighting over a 20-week abortion ban that will be happening in November. But I believe that the results of that, because nothing like that has ever passed in Colorado, will help to reinforce the idea that the state will continue to have a right there. So we will have at least, I believe, 15 states that should make it so that you will always be able to get an abortion there. The problem is that most of those states are either on the West Coast. So you see Washington, California, Nevada, or they're over in the Pacific, or not Pacific, up in the Northeast area. So you've got Maine, New York, obviously, those areas. And then there's one or two in the Midwest. So, Minnesota, where I'm from, is one of those that has protected the rights. Iowa has a state constitution, but that might be getting overturned. Illinois will definitely always have a right to an abortion there, and they just codified that, I believe, last legislative session. So we're looking at Colorado, Minnesota, Illinois as being the places in the Midwest that a person can go to get an abortion if Roe is overturned. And otherwise, the entirety of the South, especially the Black Belt, will be gone. Everything from Texas all the way over to Florida will be nothing. The furthest south that you'll be able to get an abortion is probably going to be Virginia and maybe Kansas.
Wow. So, and I've heard you describe this as a wall before.
Yes.
That trigger laws create a wall of.
It quite literally creates a wall, especially in the South and in the Gulf Coast area, which is where I work. I work for Yellowhammer Fund in Alabama and at the West Alabama Women's Center. And one of the maps that we're looking at right now shows that if all of the states go the way that we expect the states to go, if Roe is overturned, when we have a patient who's in Tuscaloosa, the closest place that we're going to be able to send them to is probably Illinois.
Thanks so much, Robin Marty. And this is What Is Even Happening. Thanks.